So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar on the overview of Evidence Synthesis Ireland and an introduction to our inaugural Study Within a Review Award Scheme. My name is Nikita Burke and I'm the Programme Manager with Evidence Synthesis Ireland and Cochrane Ireland. I'm joined here today by Professor Declan Devan, who's going to give an introduction or an overview onto a Study Within a Review, or SWARs, and then we're going to hear from Saif, who's our postdoctoral researcher and our senior methodologist with ESI, who's going to tell you about the scheme we have. So Evidence Synthesis Ireland is an all-Ireland centre based out of the National University of Galway, Ireland, and we host Cochrane Ireland. We're funded by the Health Research Board in the Republic of Ireland and the HSE R&D division of the Public Health Agency in Northern Ireland. And our aim is to build knowledge, awareness and capacity in evidence synthesis on the island of Ireland. So Declan is the lead for ESI in the Republic of Ireland, and Professor Brona Blackwood is the lead for Northern Ireland, and she's based out of Queen's University Belfast. So if you ever want to get in touch with us at all, our contact details are in the bottom left corner of this slide. So what is evidence synthesis? Well, there's an overwhelming amount of information, studies and trials out there about different types of healthcare decisions that we need to make. And instead of just cherry picking one or two studies that might be biased, it is best practice to synthesize the global body of evidence to get an overall view of the global balance of evidence. Evidence synthesis methods establish the overall balance of information on a given topic, and this involves systematically identifying, assessing and examining all the available evidence so that you can have one kind of cohesive decision to inform healthcare decisions in policy and practice. So our mission is to make evidence syntheses more usable. So we want to ensure that they're better designed, conducted and reported so that evidence is more usable for decision makers within policy and practice on the island of Ireland and beyond. So the objectives of ESI are to build knowledge, awareness and capacity in evidence synthesis, to strengthen research training in evidence synthesis, and to promote the conduct of high quality evidence synthesis methodology research. So I'll talk to you, as I said, about our training and our fellowships that address these first two objectives, and Declan and Saif will talk to you about the SWAR programme, which aims to meet the third objective there. We achieve our objectives across three pillars of activity. One is support and network, two, which I'll talk to you about, is training and education, and three is our research and innovation strand. So our training and education includes webinars. We have monthly free webinars, which are available online once they're recorded on our website. We have over nearly 30 hours of content available on the website, and these are open to everybody. And we have global participation in these webinars. And they're free, and they're available for anyone in the world to attend. Our workshops are almost monthly also, and these are a mixture of in-person and online workshops, and these in general are available to people based on the island of Ireland, but sometimes we do have spaces available for those outside of Ireland as well, so do feel free to get in contact with us. We have a fellowship scheme, which I'll talk about. Again, this is available to individuals from the island of Ireland, and once a year we also have one fellow from a low to middle income country. We have summer studentships to fund short 8-week projects in evidence synthesis for undergraduate students. We have a communicating with the public mentorship scheme that helps individuals to communicate the results of evidence syntheses to a public audience. And we also have Cochrane Crowd, which is education modules in evidence synthesis for the general public. So you can find out about our events if you sign up to our newsletter on our website, evidencesynthesisireland.ie, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you can put in your email address there and you'll sign up to our newsletter, which is monthly. We also have a training calendar on our website, and we have, as I said, our webinars are monthly and are free, and the workshops have a subsidised fee and are available online and in person as well. So some webinars that you might be interested in is our next one is on the 16th of February, so just 2 weeks time at 1 p.m, and it's on data sources and searching for adverse effects. We have an exciting in-person workshop as well in network meta-analysis. So this is a 3-day workshop led by Dr. Anna Shemani from INSERM in Paris, and she will be leading this workshop on network meta-analysis, and there are places available to individuals outside of Ireland as well. So if you're interested in that, we expect it to sell out, so do register soon, and that's available on our website. And we also have online workshop, Introduction to Mixed Method Synthesis, led by Professor Ruth Garside, and this is our second time running this workshop, and that is available, and that's online in March as well. So I'm going to quickly go over our fellowship scheme, which is very, very popular. But essentially what it is it provides the fellow with the opportunity to learn how to do evidence synthesis. And fellows join existing reviews that have high potential for impact on policy and practice. And they are mentored and they join a team. And this allows them to participate in a high quality review without the need to lead. It might be their first review. So it is flexible. It's approximately 8 hours a week. But this allows people working full-time or indeed part-time as well to apply. And there's a host of benefits which I'll go through, including the mentorship, network and access to training. And this call is open 2 to 3 times a year. And again, you'll find out if you sign up to our newsletter. So the benefits include, hands-on experience, learning to do kind of on the job in a very high quality environment. They could be reviews that could be national or international, and that have, are oftentimes commissioned. For example, within ESI, they're commissioned by the WHO. There's access to travel and dissemination bursary. There's mentorship and free attendance at all of ESI's workshops that I mentioned previously, and also the opportunity, of course, to co-author publications and other reports that might arise from the fellowship. And of course, as well, there's the access to network and collaboration opportunities. So this is just one of our fellows, Ciara Gleeson, who's a physiotherapist in St. James's, and she said how she found it a fantastic opportunity as a clinician to become involved with evidence-based medicine, as well as generating higher quality evidence. And she really benefited from working with the review team and her mentor, and she published a Cochrane review. So that's all from me. We're also going to have some time for Q&A at the end. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen that you can put your questions into, or you can also use the chat function, but we prefer if you use the Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing and handing over to Declan now.
Thanks, Nikita. Just bear with me a second. I hope that's sharing okay and you can see me. Yeah. Or hear me. So what I want to talk to you about is what is a study within a review, and much of my slides is based on this paper by colleagues and I, which is just recently published. And it goes through in much more detail about what a SWAR is, why it's important, what are the constituent or key features of it, how might you report it, etc. So for a bit of inspiration, perhaps have a look at that paper, but just acknowledge that these slides are based on that. So just by way of introduction to the systematic SWARs, so we know that systematic reviews must be conducted with methodological rigor and transparency, and that's so we can have confidence in the findings of a review, and that decision makers can have confidence that this has undergone a robust process in arriving at the conclusions of the review that they may use to inform recommendations or decisions they have to take. But equally as important to the rigor with which the review is conducted, we need to start asking questions about how robust is the evidence base that we use to inform decisions about how we plan, do, and share systematic reviews or other evidence syntheses. So in the same way that we want to bring about a rigorous process to doing systematic reviews or other evidence synthesis, we should be looking for a rigorous evidence base to inform decisions about how we do evidence syntheses. But we have, and those of you who do evidence syntheses, systematic reviews, other types of evidence syntheses know that we have many uncertainties or lack of evidence informing decisions that we might want to take in our review processes. So for example, what are the optimal approaches to searching and citation screening? What's the effectiveness of machine learning in supporting screening and or data extraction? What perhaps is the effectiveness of different modes of sharing the findings of syntheses for different audiences? So we've lots of questions we need answering. So if you look at the way syntheses are evolving, so for example, living systematic reviews, which as we know seek to reduce the time between the availability of the findings from the primary research and their synthesis, but they need better evidence to inform decisions about how frequently should searching be done, team organisation, team processes, more efficient ways of managing that large workload that often comes with many of these living systematic reviews, and how you integrate those processes. So lots of questions for which we need good quality evidence to inform the decisions about syntheses better. So because of that absence of evidence, likely that many decisions we all have to take in doing planning, doing and reporting systematic reviews aren't informed by good quality research evidence. That's not to say that some are not, but many are not. And unfortunately, we'll continue to have these uncertainties until we have an evaluation of different approaches to doing reviews or to reporting reviews. So we need comparisons of different ways of doing things at all stages of the review process, from question identification all the way down to bring that evidence into policy and practice. So a resource efficient way of doing that is to undertake the study within a review. So we'll talk about over the next few slides what a study within a review is and what it might look like. So a study within a review is it's a study that can provide evidence to inform decisions about how we plan, do, and share the findings of future reviews. They address a methodological uncertainty. They're usually embedded within a single systematic review or another evidence synthesis, and they're usually looking at a question around evaluating different ways of delivering or organising a particular systematic review process. So for example, how we identify and prioritise questions, how we involve different stakeholders, how we screen evidence, how we extract, how we critically appraise, etc. They're guided by whatever particular process question they want to answer, what's the uncertainty they want to address. A research team doing a SWAR can look at diverse study types, including embedding a randomized trial as a SWAR within a review or suite of reviews, for example. They can look at non-randomized comparisons. It may be mixed methods. It may be a qualitative type of study design. So the SWAR is designed to explore the uncertainty that the review team want to answer, and also looking at what are the consequences of the different implications and consequences of the different methodological decisions that might be taken. So the key features of a SWAR are that it aims to generate evidence on how we plan, do, and share the findings of systematic reviews. As mentioned, it selects from diverse study designs appropriate to the methodological uncertainty the SWAR is trying to actually answer, or the evidence is trying to generate. It can be embedded within a single review or across multiple reviews to make any necessary comparisons. Excuse me. It shouldn't compromise the objective, the methods, the integrity, or the outcome and dissemination of the host review or reviews that it's embedded in. So it's not meant, in most cases, to influence, but it certainly should not compromise. It's accompanied by its own discrete protocol, and we encourage researchers, which I'll talk about in a moment, to register the protocols for their SWAR in what we call the SWAR repository, which is held in Northern Ireland. And we'll talk about that in a moment. SWARs informs the method, design, and implementation of future systematic reviews and evidence synthesis. That's the primary purpose of them, to provide a better evidence base to decisions that are taken on future reviews. But where it's appropriate, the outcome of a SWAR may inform decisions actually within the host review, for example. And they're good value. A SWAR need not be prohibitively expensive, and indeed, it's likely to be more resource efficient than trying to run a separate discrete study, because the synthesis is likely to be going on anyway. So the SWAR is embedded within that synthesis. So it's not trying to cover the costs of doing the synthesis, just testing the alternative ways of doing something, perhaps. Here's some examples of some SWAR topics. So does single versus double blinding and abstract screening impact the study selection process? Does it depend on the review type, for example? What simplified systematic review methods are appropriate to apply in a rapid review? Evaluating the effects of dual independent screening compared with, for example, a continuous sampling plan. Or another example, investigating the effects of including automation techniques when conducting reviews. So, for example, robot reviewer or automatic extraction of metadata, or using artificial intelligence or machine learning technology to aid in the screening process of either title and abstract or full text or both. So in determining what topics SWAR should look at, there are some resources available. So key to the development of the SWAR agenda is what are the priorities it should look at. And in the context of rapid reviews, there is a top 10 methodological uncertainties exists about how we plan, do, and share the findings of rapid reviews. And that was what we call the Priority 3 study. And that was an Evidence Synthesis Ireland project in collaboration with others that identified the top 10 unanswered questions about how we plan, do, and share the findings of rapid reviews. And that's available on the ESI website, and you can access the paper here. I mentioned earlier on about registering SWARs. So the Northern Ireland Methodology Hub hosts the SWAR repository, and that is a centralized library of these methodological studies and a place where people can log the proposed study and deposit their findings. The list of currently registered SWARs and ongoing SWARs is available within that SWAR repository. And a new SWAR can be registered by completing the application form, an application form that's available on the SWAR repository website. Why bother registering the SWAR in the repository? Well, for two big reasons. Number one, it promotes transparency in the work you're doing yourself. And number two, it helps minimize duplication of effort and research waste, because you can see who's already active in this area, who may be answering a very similar question to one you're proposing to do. So worth checking before you embark on any SWAR activity. In sharing the findings of SWARs, ideally they be published as a standalone paper. If a SWAR was conducted within a host review, its findings could, at least theoretically, be published within a section of the host review. But we'd ask that you make sure that you flag in the host review abstract that this host review includes a SWAR, to make it easier to find and locate these methodological pieces of work. A SWAR addressing the same question could be conducted within multiple host reviews simultaneously. And here, the results of the SWARs could actually be synthesized if they're all working with the same protocol. The findings of multiple SWARs across multiple reviews working with the same protocol could be synthesized and reported simultaneously, indeed as a meta-analysis, for example, or another narrative synthesis, and within one publication. But regardless of where you publish it, we encourage you publish it in open access repository so that the findings can better inform decisions about how we do systematic reviews. Please link SWARs with their associated protocols in the SWAR repository store. So once you've got the findings, go back and edit the repository and add to it to show where the links to the findings that SWAR are. And we encourage dissemination through various channels, including open access peer review papers, please, webinars, podcasts, conference presentation, blogs, and other means of dissemination that you might have open to you. And with that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to hand over to Saif, who's going to pick up on the award scheme itself that we have available. Thank you, Saif.
Thanks, Declan. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm just sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen and can hear me clearly.
Yeah, all good, Saif.
Thanks. So this is about the Evidence Synthesis Ireland SWAR Award Scheme. And as you already know from Nikita and Declan, what Evidence Synthesis Ireland is working on and what is a SWAR. So we have launched a SWAR funding scheme, and we have launched this call in January this year, and the closing of the call is at March 31st of 2023. And you will get the details of the SWAR award scheme, its guidance note and the application form, and also the relevant SWAR flyers and our papers in our website. And as I mentioned, that in this flyer, you will get a brief idea about what is SWAR and what are the key features of SWAR that has already been nicely explained by Declan. You will get our guidance note where we have mentioned each and every criteria of how to apply for this funding scheme, and the details application form and other things as well. And this is actually the scope of the call. So the applicants, as you know, that you may apply to facilitate a SWAR that should address a methodological research question, either on the design or conducting or analyzing or reporting or dissemination of a systematic review or other evidence synthesis. So it can be at any point of the method of the systematic review or evidence synthesis, but there should be a current uncertainty and there should be a need to provide evidence to support alternative ways of delivering or organizing review processes. And as I mentioned, this is just a seed funding, and the total number of funding is 2 and per year. So we will be funding 2 awards annually, and the total number of amount of the award is around 6,250 each, including a 25% overhead. And the SWAR project should be completed within a duration of 12 months, starting from our date. And we hope that the applicants will follow the strict timeline for completing the study. And again, who should apply for this SWAR application? So it is actually open for the lead applicants who are based on the island of Ireland and working on an eligible institution, either an academic institution or a research institution. But the good news is that you can collaborate with any person across the globe. So there can be the co-applicants from any part of the world. And we actually appreciate the international collaboration. And the host reviews can be located anywhere in the world, and the applications from the early career researchers are really welcome, and we will have some waiting on that point if the applicant is an early career researcher. And this is just a glimpse of the application form of the SWAR that you'll get this from the Evidence Synthesis Ireland website. And just you need to complete this application form, and along with the CV of the lead applicant, you need to submit the application form to the mentioned email address by the deadline. And each application will go through a peer review process. So there will be a blinded peer review process, and the peer review process will be done independently by the peer reviewers. And we can assure that we will maintain strictly and rigorously the rules of conflict of interest. And all applicants will be notified when the peer review is complete, and possibly we will provide some feedback from the peer reviewers to the applicants as well. Regarding the assessment criteria, as I mentioned a couple of them earlier, so these are the assessment criteria. So we will look whether the applicant is an early career researcher or not. If the applicant is an early career researcher, so we will look whether there is satisfactory mentoring arrangement or not. And the track record of the applicant team will be considered. We will consider the rationale and the potential impact of the SWAR itself, the methodological approaches of the SWAR, and of course, the international collaboration. So based on the weighting of the assessment criteria, you can just strengthen your application, focusing on the specific points of this assessment criteria. And the budget, you will get the detail in the guidance note, but in summary, it will cover the salary. It can cover the salary and running cost, and it can also cover some dissemination and knowledge exchange cost and the overhead contribution that is 25%, as I mentioned earlier. But keep in mind that the total budget is 6,250. So that's all from the SWAR funding scheme application process. So now, if you have any question regarding the SWAR process or the funding scheme or anything, so you can ask. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Saif. So yeah, we're open for questions in the Q&A or in the chat as well. So do let us know if there's anything that's not clear. It is our first time running this scheme, so it is a pilot, so we will have some questions that we know there'll be frequently asked questions. We'll compile any questions from this and we'll put it up on our website as well, on the webpage at evidencesynthesisireland.ie/SWAR.
No questions yet.
We have got one.
Well, they're from Brona, so thank you, Brona. Where have SWARs typically been published? And if not published, are they on the repository?
Good question, Brona. In terms of SWARs themselves and being labeled as SWARs, there are very few published, and they're in diverse journals. However, there are other methodological pieces of work that have been done that do address methodological uncertainties in evidence syntheses, and they've been published in a number of journals, but they tend to be methodologically focused journals largely that seem to have published those, or journals that publish a lot of syntheses. So there's a number of journals out there that will be known to publish, for example, methodological work around any type of research indeed. And then there are some systematic review and other syntheses specific journals. So it tends to be in that particular area that we see some of the papers that are addressing methodological uncertainties about it within evidence syntheses published, but many of them are not labeled as SWARs as such yet anyway. Thanks for the question.
Declan, I have a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the thing with the SWARs, I think, is important is that their potential to inform how the community plan, do, and share future reviews, I think, is quite significant. We have a lot of areas where we don't have certainty about how we plan, do, and share them, and there's a real need to increase the efficiencies by which we plan, do, and share these reviews.
We have a question here as well, and it's a very good question. So the question is, if anybody from a low to middle income country would like to apply, how can she or he make the collaboration with somebody from Ireland? So if you'd like to get in contact with us at esi@universityofgalway.ie, and I'll put that in the chat in a second, we will share your expression of interest with our network, so on our Twitter and in our newsletter. And if you can tell us your expertise, what expertise in evidence synthesis you have, or if you have an idea for a SWAR, or even if you have indeed a host review that you would like to have the SWAR on, we'll put that out to our network, and we'll promote it, and hopefully then there'll be somebody in Ireland who would like to get in touch. We are restricted so that the awards have to have a PI in Ireland because of funding, so we have to send the funding within Ireland and Northern Ireland. But as Saif showed, there is a criteria for international collaboration, so we would really encourage all applicants to ensure that there's international collaboration. And if you don't have anybody like that, we'll have shared some individuals from outside of Ireland who you could get in contact with. I have another question there for Brona. Declan, you can be answering.
Oh yes, thanks Brona, thank you. Yes, there are a number of SWARs where the protocol is on the repository, and then the reviewers have helpfully and appropriately gone back in and edited the protocol to include the papers or publications of this SWAR findings. So there are results available attached to a number of the SWARs. And those SWARs can also serve as inspiration for other types of SWARs that people might want to take. So that SWAR repository is well worth checking out. And I'll put that in the link to the chat here also. Thanks, Brona.
Thanks, Declan. Could you tell us about, so Declan, you would have registered the first SWAR?
Yeah, so we had looked at a long time ago now, but we'd looked at different screening methods for citations. So when you're screening citations for inclusion, the questions we had asking was, does screening of titles only, not the abstracts, just the titles, followed by screening of title and abstract of the records that are judged potentially eligible, is that more efficient than immediately and simultaneously screening the titles and abstract together? And you can visit what we found by going to the SWAR repository. So I was comparing two methods of screening citations. That's because it was at the time reviewers had asked the question, they had to screen papers and they were asking the question, should we screen titles only? And then whatever moves forward to the next stage, screen titles and abstracts? Or should we screen title and abstract at the same time? So you'll be able to see that in the repository.
Just sharing some links.
Thank you. Thanks,
in the chat to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't see any more questions at the moment. If anybody does have anything burning that they'd like to answer, or that they're really not sure and they'd like us to go over a concept again, please do ask now in the next minute. But of course, if you do have anything, if you have a look through the guidance notes on our website, have a look at the repository, as Declan said, and also our SWAR paper, which we wrote kind of to introduce the concept, or reintroduce the concept of SWARs in advance of the SWAR Award Scheme being opened. So hopefully that will give you maybe some inspiration. You can also look at the Priority 3 study and look at other SWATs or other SWARs in the repository to give you some ideas of what you might do. And if you have any other questions while you're kind of thinking about your SWAR or thinking about your application, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us at the email I have in the chat, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So I don't see anything. So sorry, Declan.
No, I'd say thanks everyone, and thanks Saif, and thanks Nikita, and thanks Tom behind the scenes for his help.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And we'll give you some minutes back in your day, and you can maybe take that time to look at some of those documents and reflect, and maybe come up with some ideas to apply to our SWAR Award Scheme. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Saif and Declan, and thanks to everybody for attending and engaging with us.